What do you got here?
This is old dry block. See the difference in the covers? There's no water below the ports. This is all air cooled. When you pull the air box, it's like fins almost. Air typically, typical of any air cooled, like a cylinder head on a Harley Davidson or any air cooled engine. It's webbed. Webbed would be a better word to say.
Okay, yeah,
webbed in there, and that's how you tell. A lot of people says, "Well, how can I tell?" They'll add two things. They'll say, "How can I tell a dry block if I got a dry block?" Well, first of all, if the truck's new enough, you can about tell them sorry. No, it's not a dry block.
Not going to be a dry block.
If it's got the big covers, the dry block. Another thing they ask is, how can I tell if it's 92? You can be blind and tell. Because see how flat this head is, right even with the block?
Yep.
On a 92, it's not like that. And it's got 3 little webs, supports, and it'll come out just like this. So you can feel those little webs on a 92.
Right.
So very easily tell which engine is which. From the original design of the 6V, they'll have one. Yours has got one of those covers on a 6V. Right. And the 8V, of course, has the 2, and they went with the water blow ports in 68. 67 was about the last of these.
Okay.
It was about the last of those.
Painted sky in a sunset scene, through the window of a GMC, white lines and lighted signs got me hypnotized. There's nothing like the feel of the road and the smell of the diesel smoke. Another 10 or 20 miles, I'll be pulling in this thing.
So let's get this show on the road, shall we?
13 years just laying it down, driving my GMC. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Welcome back to the channel. It's Dane Scott from Dane Scott's Truckers Lounge. Wanted to kind of preempt the video today with Billy Parker and welcoming him back to the Truckers Lounge for another interesting interview. But before we get to the interview, I have some sad news. I don't think I've had to deal with this in the Truckers Lounge in the time that I've had the channel up. It was a year in July that I had the channel up. So we're now in the beginning of December. And you guys may recall we featured a blue and silver Astro belonging to a gentleman named Ron Greer, who you see in the photos behind me here. And Ron lives close by, just 20 minutes away. And Mr. Wizard and I and Wayne Rice, who you've seen his trucks, and Ron kind of been hanging together there at the truck events. And you'll remember the Astro Assault video that we did. That was with Ron in his 79 Astro. And my 2 Astros, we did a parade over the summer. I'm sad to report that Ron has passed away yesterday. And doesn't feel real good to lose a friend. Someone that you've not known a long time, but just grown close. Ron was a great guy. Just kind of a fireball, and he had the wherewithal to fly down to Texas, down by the Mexico border, and drive that Astro back home. And it took him, I think, 14 days to get that Astro back up here to Pennsylvania. And the stories that he had were just awesome. Good stuff of when you go and you get a truck and you don't know what you're getting, and you're going to drive it across the United States. So I was hoping to have Ron back for a follow-up get some more of those good stories. So unfortunately, Ron is no longer with us. So Ron, my hat is tipped to you, and it's a great loss and a friendship. And I really enjoyed knowing you for the time that I was blessed to do that. So hat tip to you at the Truckers Lounge. Okay, welcome back. I hope you guys are ready, because Billy Parker is here. He was here over the summer, and now he's come back, and we're going to sit down and talk to him a little bit more about Detroit diesels and some cool trucking info. So don't forget to like and subscribe and invite a friend. We're trying to get to the 10,000 subscriber mark by the first of the year. Really help me out. It helps support the channel. So invite someone to look at the videos and subscribe if they like what they see. So stick around town. Here's Billy.
I'm getting your GMC cap on.
Isn't that something?
Claire.
All right. So welcome back to the channel, guys. Billy Parker's here today, and he just didn't get enough of the north, I guess, over the summer. You wanted to see what it was like to really live up north.
Must have. Must have.
2 feet of snow here. So I've been trying to get Billy back here, and he had to make a little round robin trip to pick up some parts and a bumper here at the Truckers Lounge. So wanted to continue our conversation from last time. We had some questions, and I'm going to reference those. But before we do, you'll see in the intro there an engine that he just picked up, and it's kind of a unique Detroit engine. I'm going to let him tell us about that engine that you saw in the intro. So Billy, go ahead and tell us what that engine is and where it came from and what's the plan.
Okay. I'm not sure what year model it is, but it's what they call a dry block 8V71, which means there's no water around the liners below the ports. I have been hunting an engine like that for a special purpose I'll get to. I've had people ask, how can you tell the difference in those engines? And it's very easily determined between the wet blocks because of the large oval-shaped airbox covers. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I got this engine. It's complete. Been reworking head to go on a special block that's got a large airbox. This is it. Mm-hmm. The airbox is, I don't know, maybe twice the size of a water blow port.
Oh, really?
So that's going to be important because with the 92 head type style on a 71, that will allow me to do some timing changes and have room for more air.
Well, I would assume there was a reason to have that, a specialized engine for just a limited amount of time. You said that was only available.
That was just the original design.
Okay.
Apparently, you know, and I've thought about this, the inlines aren't that way, but for some reason, General Motors didn't think they would need to put water around the liner down there. Mm-hmm. You want to air cool it. All your heat's at the top of the block, so that's the only place we do, which worked very well. I have, back in the day, rebuilt many of those engines that ran just as well as the others, mm-hmm. just as long.
Now, is that specific to that? That's an 8V71.
Yeah.
Was that specific to that engine then?
No, your 6V71 in the cracker box is that way.
Same deal. Okay.
Mm-hmm. You can tell again by the side covers. I have a 12V71 at the shop that I just bought that has the large covers. It's a dry blow port block, but the only reason I got it was for restoration. It just, you know, of course, for an engine, a 12V that old, probably wouldn't be in a 50s GMC truck, obviously, because they didn't build the engines till 63, a V engine, 71 to 63. But the one I have does have the old style belts, brackets, and so forth. And the plan was to install this 12V in that old model GMC, so that as close as what it might have looked like if General Motors had have done it. So I don't know if that will ever happen, but that's the plan.
Well, I know that you've been working on, geez, some remodeling down there and moving things around and kind of getting yourself set up for winter. And didn't you pull some trucks inside too, or something? A 9500s inside, or?
Yes, I've got my little 9500 I've had put up for about 18 years.
Yeah.
That truck, I'm gonna say, I think it's got 146,000 miles on it.
Wow.
Yeah. Original seats in it are not torn, ripped. No, they're perfect. They're perfect.
Now, did you buy that new then, or?
No. You know, it's hard to imagine. They look original, and I don't think the company that had this truck before me would have had them covered, would have taken the time to cover them to look original. So I'm gonna say the original seats. And so some people and I have had some discussion about the dash. There were a few GMCs that had the different gauges. It's more of a Stewart Warner type gauge. It's not the larger AC.
Right.
And I don't know, I still don't know why GMC did that, why they put those gauges in certain ones. And it doesn't have the wood grain dash, which they quit that in 78, 9 or something. But so it has the aluminum buds and the tanks, the aluminum it's polished out and chromed up pretty good. So
did you? Was that one that you got to replace? I know you had one, and a driver that drove for you rolled it or something.
Yes.
Was that the replacement?
That was the replacement.
Okay.
Let's see. So if that one's been put up 18 years or so, that could have been like the early 90s. So it took me. I mean the early 2000s. So the other one was wrecked in 97. So it took me 5 years or something to find one just like it. And the engine, I ran it just a little bit. The engine was weak, and I put it up, and then I had some health issues, back surgeries, and all this, you know. And so that's where it's at.
So now it's inside finally.
No, it's been inside.
Oh, okay.
It's been inside.
Okay.
It's been put up the whole time.
I know you were making some room down there. And
well, what I'm doing, I'm moving it from the storage building to the shop.
Okay.
To actually do the engine rebuild. But I'm gonna put it all back original. You know, I do have a set of 70 injectors to go in it. I gotta have one something. And I've tried everywhere to find anybody got an RTO 915 transmission.
we had a few questions there, and I don't know, a couple videos back. When I took the cracker box down to the lakefront there. Okay, one guy asked about torque. He was asking, this is David Gainley was asking, what's the max torque that you can set on an 8B92T?
Well, when you're talking about torque, you've got to talk about horsepower. So, you know, that's a hard to give him an exact figure. That'd be hard to do because you got to know a lot more information as far as the engine, the application. Now, let me say this. People have asked me when I was running my trucks. I always want them geared like the International I drove all the time. 8V71, 13 overdrive with 410 IH gears on tall rubber. It would run out 97 miles an hour at 2350. People said, why you weren't geared or not? No, I'm not running 97 miles an hour. On the interstate late at night, yeah, sure, maybe 80 or something, you know. But here was the thing, and if you don't believe it, try this. I'll use a 10-speed for example. You go to a chassis dyno. What gear do you run it in to check the torque and the horsepower on the engine?
Mid-range?
Direct.
Oh, direct. Okay.
You want it direct from the engine. So go ahead and say, I'm using a 10-speed example, put it in 10th gear and check it, see what the horsepower is, see what the torque is. Then drop it down to 9th gear and see what the torque and the horsepower comes up to. So see, that's my point. You got a 13 speed that's geared for the way mine was. If I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4 splits down at 65 or 70, I have multiplied my torque or horsepower by, I don't know what percentage, but all of a sudden that N70, 8V71, instead of being about a 340 or a 345, could be 375. You know, and they want to know why I'm pulling with this 350 Cummins over here. Well, he's struggling to keep up with that 318. So
Yeah.
So that you know, maybe that kind of answers this question.
Right.
But to give him a number of the maximum torque,
You need more details.
See, I'm gonna tell you something else too. It all depends on the power stroke. You got to remember, on that 2-cycle, you only have a real usable 90 degrees of power stroke. That's why a 4-stroke engine, say a 4-stroke Cummins, Cat engine, will have more torque because it's got the possibility of a full 180 degrees if it needs it for torque. Where 90 degrees, the torque is effectively stopped because the valves start to open, and then a few degrees, 120 or something, it starts uncovering the pistons start uncovering the ports. So then you know it's over with, because then the engine starts scavenging.
Right.
So there's a whole lot more to it, and I think we talked about this on the turbos, and I get this asked a lot. A lot of people ask this on a turbo Detroit. Now this engine that I'm going to do with my 92 head design on this 71, I'm going to be able to change the timing and the valve adjustment and increase that amount of time. And anytime you can do that, you can increase that power in the torque.
How many miles could you get out of an 8V71 or 6V71 compared to an 855 Cummins? So I don't know if he's talking about lifespan.
I think he is.
Okay.
Well, I'll say this, that 1973 International that I have, still have, I bought it in 79, I think, about 5 or 6 years old, and the engine was bad, needed rebuilding. I bought it that way. The left cylinder head was off of it. So I towed it to the shop.
What engine does that have?
8V71.
The 8V71.
So I towed it to the shop, and then when I had time, because I was running a trucking company and the garage, so when I had time, I got it in, checked it over. The truck was exceptionally nice. I mean, 5 years old, but it still looked like new. So I decided I was going to keep that one. So I rebuilt it, in-framed, didn't pull it out, did an in-frame overhaul, and that engine is still running today. I can move, around on the yard. It's not pulled a load in several years, but it had, the last time I checked, 1.2 million miles on it. So 855 Cummins, if it runs that long, if they keep the coolant conditioner in it, and no O-ring, liner O-ring problems, electrolysis, or any of the wet liner problems. If that doesn't happen, I think and adjusting the valves, keeping the engine tuned up. Here's another thing: a lot of people don't want to tune the engine up. Why don't I want to tune the engine up? It's running great. Well, one thing, valves always get tighter; they never get looser. Detroit Diesel Series 60. The rock arms on the intake, about like that. And the exhaust reaches over, and they're longer, of course. But the intakes always are tight. If it's been run, start with, they said tune them up every 100,000 once a year. And I have done that for some customers, and sure enough, they needed it. Yeah. Especially those little short.
And you're talking about a working truck, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
When you're in the hobby mode like this,
I'm
probably
talking
not
about
an issue.
No, the guys I work for, they use these trucks.
Sure,
they use these trucks, and I would. In fact, I still got the old original fifth wheel wrecker that I used. I was
Yeah.
thinking about coming up here. I've been as far as this side of Buffalo on 90 to tow a friend in at 8B71 International. Towed him all, and now it was kind of like this that trip, you know, a lot of snow, but not on the road.
Yeah, thank goodness.
And but that's yeah, those are all working trucks, so that would be different. Now, you know, like your trucks, like you use them, if they now when you buy like yours and you don't know how long it's been, first thing I do is tune it up to make sure, and then no more than you drive it, I don't even know, just whenever you think you might want to.
It just goes to truck shows, man. They get pampered.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so we have someone here who says on these two-stroke Detroits, naturally aspirated, they have a blower that's there so they can run, and because a two-stroke diesel cannot suck in any air by itself, question is, that blower pushing boost into the engine, or is it just running at regular atmospheric pressure, just acting as an air pump?
It's just acting as an air pump and scavenging. Basically, it supplies the air, fresh air for the engine to run. That's why, even though it's got what some people want to call a supercharger, if you put it on, here's a good way to remember the difference. If it's on a car, on a drag strip, it's packing that air in that four-stroke engine, it's packing that cylinder tight, supercharging the air. On a two-cycle engine, it's supplying air and it's scavenging the exhaust out. Now, I will say this, on some of the pie charts that I've looked at recently when I was doing some of the design on my engine, does show, one of them showed 3 degrees of what they call boost. Just 3 degrees after the valves closed, you know, the intake had that little bit of time to pack a little more air in. Right. But here's the problem with that. To say that's boost, you've got to pack the whole air box because it's like filling up a cylinder with a hole in it. Yeah, you know, it's like filling, where the Cummins is like filling up a cylinder that's solid, it's closed. So so there's some difference. There's some difference there. But basically, to answer his question, it's just the air pump. That's it's not to say supercharger on a Detroit diesel is, in my opinion, incorrect.
Someone made a comment on here, and I was trying not to be smart because it seemed like kind of a, I don't know if they were trying to goad me or not, but someone said your title said 6V71, or no, your title said 671 Detroit, and you've got a 6V71. What's the deal? So I was like,
you left the V out.
Yeah, but okay, just let's give him the benefit of the doubt, like he's really wondering what difference is there between a 671 and a 6V71, and why did they make the two?
Very easy answer. Very easily answered. And inline, when you say, here's why I said that. When you say 671, typically you're referring to an inline.
Correct.
That's what he was catching you on.
Right. And he was right.
He was right. He was right. Because yours has a 6V71. And about 58, 59, that was a big deal for General Motors. When they designed that cracker box, cracker box, little short cab, even the sleeper cabs are shorter than most. But mainly the day cabs, because that 6V is no longer than that cab. Your engine does not come out the back of the cab. A 671 will come out the back of the cab of a day cab. Sure. And you got to remember this, back then they were running either a 5-speed, 2-speed axle, or if you had a 10-speed, it was an R96, a single countershaft, just like regular old 5-speed. It wasn't a double countershaft like an RT910. And they were about that long. Right. You didn't have room to. Didn't have a drive shaft. You didn't have room for a drive shaft. They wanted the wheelbase shorter. That's why a lot of them were 6V, 5-speed, 2-speed. Because even with the 6V, the drive shaft wouldn't be. So that was the whole purpose. But yeah, he got you on that.
So would it be fair to say that they actually made that design because of the day cab situation?
Absolutely. General Motors designed that 6V because they were designing and coming out with that new cab. And a lot of these brochures, and you probably got some here, but I've got plenty of brochures that they go into, you know, some depth as to making a big deal about it being short. Some of them, I mean, they're like incredibly short, like I want to say 54 inches. I mean, a 92 BBC 9500, that's 92 BBC. And we're talking about the whole truck, 54 or something, maybe. I don't know. It's maybe the cab was 54. I don't know, but it was just incredibly short. Yeah.
Well, it's probably a good thing he pointed that out. I mean, I just, in my mind, 671 is 671. Okay, it was either in line or it was a V for these purposes. But there is some torque differences, isn't there?
No, it's exactly. If you've got a 6V71 with N65 injectors and you got an inline, and it's tuned up the same. It's supposed to be the same power. Same power. They didn't make any difference in the power or noting any difference in the V and the inline.
Gotcha.
But now let me say this: he got you on that because when you didn't say yours was 6V, you were incorrect. But I see so many things online that the terminology, to me, because I grew up back in the day, my dad, he just started in the 50s and well before that, World War II. But you know, I heard the old terminology.
Right.
Like they'll talk about fuel rail. They'll say common rail injection, common rail. Well, you know, if you think about it, you got the drill ports, or the very old Detroits had the old Detroits had the old external fuel rails. So that's kind of correct, but that's more of a Cummins terminology. And then these guys that wants to increase the fuel pressure, they think they increase the fuel pressure. They see a fuel pressure on a say they got an 8V92. All it needs is enough to supply the injectors and to cool them as it circulates. But they think some of them, if they get the pressure to where it'll pop up there about 100 pounds, it's like setting the rail pressure on a Cummins. That's what you do. That's how you check a Cummins. That's the rail pressure. Not true on these trucks. Not true. As long as you got 5-10 pounds idling, and you got 40-50 running, so it's supplying it and cooling and turning, and you don't have any leaks or whatever, you good.
Since we're on terminology, and some of you guys will appreciate this, you caught me, and I was calling engines a motor, or a motor an engine, and there is a difference rather than just words.
How long have we got? This is an age-old, and this is all I'm going to say. An engine, an engine can be called an engine or a motor, but a motor is not correct to refer to it as an engine. And there's reasons that I could go into why, and that's several different reasons. Because, as I said, think about Ford Motor Company, General Motors, they knew that then, except that just like now. I don't know what percentage would be, but the percentage of the people say two-stroke. Two-stroke, Detroit, two-stroke, the old two-stroker, you know. Okay, correct is two-stroke cycle or a four-stroke cycle. So to say two-stroke's not incorrect.
Right.
To say two cycles not incorrect either. But originally, again, go back to the old GM and the Detroit brochures. They refer to it as they don't say anything about stroke in there. Even when the 8.2 came out, they referred to it as a 4-cycle engine. Our new 4-cycle 8.2.
Right.
So it's like with the rail pressure. I know what they mean. I know what they mean when
Sure.
they say rail pressure. But the thing that bothers me is if they think that gauge is popping up like this to 100, 120 on that 8V92, and it's going to give them more power like that Cummins rail pressure, and that's why they calling it common rail. All they're going to do is burn the injectors up.
Right.
So.
Yep. Would it be, just in my unschooled thinking here, the difference between an engine and a motor? An engine is producing everything, whereas maybe a motor needs an outside source. I mean, technically, is a motor more electrical?
It has.
Or is that
Here's
right?
here's the best way to think about it. I think is an engine is actually consuming something, where a motor is more or less AC current.
It's
Some
producing.
alternating current, and that's just.
But doesn't it need it needs another source? A motor needs another source to make it turn, right?
Well,
Rather
there
than
again,
the-
there again, let me think. Let's see. We're gonna get in.
Yeah,
we're gonna
okay.
get in a
We
deep
won't get that
discussion.
deep, okay. So, well, that's we just had those few questions on there, and of course, I try to keep the videos not too long anyway, so I think that worked out really good.
Well, I hope I answered them.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
Well, you know,
That's what the comments are for. And,
that's right. Everybody has an opinion, and so that's fine. We like
Well,
to hear them all.
Yeah, that's right. As long as there's-
We'll listen to them all. Then.
That's right. So also, I mentioned that Billy's up here to get some parts there. I have a new bumper for him. It was, if you guys will remember, and I'll show a picture if I can in the video so you can see, I bought a new old stock bumper for the white Astro. I can't remember. And it turned out that it was for 1980. I think 80 is where they changed it. They went to the straight across
Something
bumper,
on there, yes.
and then at the sides it's kind of got an inset, kind of like a pie pan, and they used them on the Brigadiers as well, and it didn't fit my 73 or the 79, but the bolt pattern fit the Brigadier, which is what you're going to be putting it on. That blue
Brigadier.
killer Brigadier that you bought. That's an 8V71, correct?
That's right. That's right.
So you'll see that. So he's picking that up, and
That's the one I like to have the RTO 915 for, or just it's single axle. I just use a RTO 910 in it. So anybody have one, let us know.
all right. Well, I appreciate your coming up, and
I enjoyed it.
You're always welcome
I
here.
enjoyed it.
Again, thank you, Billy. Always welcome here.
Good to see you.
You guys stick around town. Keep the hammer down. Safe and sound.